Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are, and welcome to this Sievo webinar, Death to Dashboards. My name is Sammeli Sammalkorpi, CEO and co-founder of Sievo, and it's my great pleasure to co-host this with Alex. But Alex, who are you?
I'm Alex Streif. I'm currently Vice President Supply Chain Excellence and Scaling at Northvolt. That story is a different one. It will not be the topic of our webinar today, but I'm also a member of the advisory board of Sievo, and I'm a spend analytics enthusiast because that's where actually my career started many, many years back.
That makes two of us then, Alex. Now it's one past. I can see that we have 100 people who've joined already, but people are joining still. So let's give people like 30, 60 seconds to join, and then we'll go forward with the actual sort of presentation. So where are you, Alex, right now?
I am actually sitting in your office.
Yes, I knew that. I'm in Paris. I had to escape. It's my and Alex egos are too big to fit in the same building on the same
exactly.
day. So,
too much ego here, right?
Exactly. Good. Let's give it 30 more seconds or so.
So how's Paris?
Paris is good. So here for a couple of days. So it's a bit more summer and a bit more sunny here than it is in
Are there any demonstrations ongoing right now?
I haven't seen any. I saw the new headlines that there could be some, but I haven't seen anything as such.
Okay, great. Lucky you.
Hey, lucky me. Hey, let's get going. The topic of the webinar is death to dashboards, and let's explore that concept and what it means and how actually to make better, smarter decisions and actions. Decisions are not valuable, actions are valuable with AI-powered insights. Before we deep dive into that specific topic, let me give you like 2-minute overview of Sievo. If you are new to Sievo, you don't know us, let me kind of give a quick introduction who we are. So Sievo is basically, in essence, the global leader in procurement analytics. So we help enterprises to make sense of their dirty procurement data, create analytics. We are 40 million euro company as of today. We have grown for the last 16 years, every year, growing 20-25% this year as well. I'm based out of Helsinki, Finland, but also Chicago, Bucharest are our key locations. We have a couple of claims to fame. One is that we actually, I can't prove this, but the logic has it, we have the largest R&D budget globally focused on procurement analytics. So we invest heavily in R&D, and we'll be pushing a lot of innovation out of that. But also, and I think this is even more powerful, we process 2% of global GDP every year. So as we serve some of the largest companies in the world, we see a lot of spend and procurement data, and the total amount of that is equivalent of 2% of global GDP. Who do we serve? We serve enterprises. 1 billion of revenue above is typical sweet spot for us. We serve customers across different industries, across different geographies. What is the common challenge for these companies that we help with is make sense out of different internal and external data sources, create insights and analytics based on that. And this is basically what we've done or been doing for the past 20 years. And actually, I have spent probably more than time than most people on this planet thinking, designing, implementing, discussing, and debating dashboards. So spent dashboard is something that I devoted a big portion of my life. And now Alex is here to say that dashboards need to die. Why is that?
So I'm the one who's saying they need to die.
Yes.
So, well, I think the question, I mean, we need to differentiate between dashboards and visualizations. And that's, I think, very important to me. I think visualizations are relevant and they're going to stay relevant. It's about condensing insights into some sort of a easy to digest format. But dashboards seem to ended up in like an allocation or multiple visualizations. Ideally, they are connected, but often they are also confusing. So I think there is an element around with all the different information streams we are getting that it becomes more and more difficult to digest dashboards. So there is maybe you have a case around that they might be dying.
Yeah, and I agree. And also, I think one of the challenges with dashboards for me is that they are anyways sort of relatively static, and they are created with certain specific use case or perspective in mind. But the more and more, let's say, volatile the world is getting, the information needs actually do change even radically and quickly. But also I feel as, let's say, the mandate of procurement has been getting wider, from spend and savings and cost reduction to also risk, carbon, and so forth. The traditional answer is to create more and more dashboards, but it almost feels to me that there's this information overflow, that at some point 2 is okay, 3 is okay, 5 is okay, but when you're 10 and 15, you just somehow lose track.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think this descriptive element is one. I think we all have seen for many, many years data being described, but then there is something missing, which is the so what. So what are we actually learning out of that data? And I feel the format of dashboards does not necessarily easily give us the story around what to do with what we see on the dashboard, and it leaves it up to the observer, the reader of the charts, what to interpret out of the charts.
No, exactly, and I guess that's sort of a great segue to where we are heading with the next slides and the message of this webinar as well. If dashboards need to die, or at least partially need to die, what's going to replace? And I guess we have a theory here, so let's share that theory and debate that a bit. Before we go there, let me share perhaps Sievo's journey on how we've interacted with data and helped our clients to interact with the data. But of course, this is also very much a kind of personal story as well, sort of how I've seen large enterprises interacting with procurement and spend data. And in some ways, when we started Sievo 20 years ago, the dashboard was the king of the castle, and it was the way to synthesize information. And I actually remember in early versions of Sievo, we were capable not only to creating the dashboard, but we could enable users to click and drill down from the dashboard in an interactive fashion. And I do remember that did create a lot of, let's say, wow effect with clients actually seeing and remembering that. But I guess you've been building some dashboards in your past as well.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, my start of the professional career was in building spend cubes. That's what we called them back then, in a data warehouse. We've been building for my employer back then, and it was an interesting thing. We started to do this like web-based right from the start. And in the beginning, there wasn't really a lot of analytics tools and visualizations available. So we used Cognos, which was back then a big BI player, and they had also like a web interface so that we could publish to web pages, which was quite advanced, but it was still static. Back then, also reports played still a major role. So we've also implemented a lot of, let's say, standard reports created out of data, and then these were pushed either to the mailboxes of users, or they were published for download. But then we also implemented one feature which we called online reporting. This was a feature where people could serve on the data. So it was the star model we created out of the relational database, and then we started to push basically, okay, you can list all the suppliers, and you could click on the suppliers, show me all the materials, and this. So this started this interactive reporting, and this actually got a lot of traction. So the element around interaction with the data is actually something very, very crucial, I believe, which also makes the value of any data you were representing much, much stronger.
No, I absolutely agree, and I think sort of what I try to explain, I feel also to our, let's say, UX designers and product managers, is that the use case sort of there's a lot of, let's say, different procurement analytics use cases, and it's impossible to try to nail down all of them in a dashboard and serve that long tail of use cases. But instead, as you also mentioned, we need to provide the users with these self-service capabilities where they can drill down, change dimension, change perspective, and create the reporting that they need. And I also agree the dashboard probably should say dashboards and reports as sort of the early iteration of the analytics. Then I would love to hear your perspective as well. I think kind of after self-service and these kind of dynamic reports, I think one thing that we also started to find value is in scenarios, sort of, okay, being able to play, what if this happens, or what if the cost reductions like that? What if there's inflation in this country? What if there's a supply chain challenge here? What are the implications? What is your experience of working with scenarios? What creates value? What doesn't?
Well, I mean, obviously, playing around with the data is creating value in itself, because you could try to understand, if I'm changing this and that parameter, what would be the possible outcomes from that. And this also, leads to people engaging with the data much more, because what you look at in the data is actually very much backward looking, right? So you're collecting the data. Now, in our case, we're speaking about procurement data, which is basically the past. So you need to also reflect about what is the future. So the element around planning, for example, could be brought in through scenarios. And this is also what we did back then in our data warehouse, that we not only enabled looking at the actual data, but also started to think about, okay, what could be the volumes of the specific material in the future, and what could be what activities do we actually plan around those materials, around consolidation of whatever suppliers, around transfer of one material to another supplier, and these kind of things. And then basically simulating the outcome on the total spend.
Absolutely. But let's take a look sort of at the next evolution. I think from Sievo's point of view, these are the things that we've worked a lot in the past. And I think this is one of my arguments why dashboards need to die, at least partially die, is that the dashboards and even self-service scenarios, they are very much, let's say, human-led, and it always does require a human to go through the data and, let's say, find the insight. And while that's valuable, then of course the value that is created is limited by how much, let's say, human effort we can put the data. So instead of, or in addition to these kind of drill down dashboards, drill down reports, what we now provide for our customers as well is more this alert up kind of reports. So basically we've coded the procurement levers into software. We let the software go through and shuffle through all the data, the latest data from yesterday or last week or last month, and then based on that provide different kind of insights to users based on category or supplier or world event. What thoughts does this trigger with you, Alex?
Yeah, and I think also looking back, I think we can learn a little bit from the past, looking at how actually human beings are interacting with any sort of data. And here I'm not specifically referring to the procurement data, like in the professional context. I'm also thinking about, okay, how do we get information nowadays, right? I mean, we get on our phones dozens of alerts from the various apps we are using. We have whatever Instagram reels based on our, let's say, behaviors. We get, let's say, customized information on basically to our fingertips. And we are used to do things, let's say, in a very efficient way, whatever, a one-click shopping on Amazon or something like that. So I think in the past, it's the same thing. I mean, Amazon-like shopping was one of the templates for basically implementing whatever desktop procurement solutions, whatever Coupa or iValue or others. So I feel that in the end, we are bringing into the professional context a lot of what people are used to do in the personal context, in the private context, while they're using the internet.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree with all of that. There's one thought process I've been, anyways, kind of going through, and I would love to get your perspective here, Alex. As a consumer, as a user, if I have certain behavior on Instagram, I get the similar stuff. I think that makes sense and is acceptable. But let's say we keep on bringing certain kind of insights to two different category managers. And one category manager always acts on these insights and creates value, whereas the other one sort of rejects them. Now the question I'm asking myself is the second category manager actually right, and we shouldn't be providing him or her these kind of insights anymore, or is it that he or she is not doing the job and just rejecting the value that we are bringing? So how should we optimize for the feed in this more professional context?
Well, I don't think that there is the one size fits all approach. Each individual is basically different, right? And I might have my behaviors, my processes, my ways of working, and I want actually this to be configurable in a way. In the end, I think we are not helped if and I really want you to save us from doom scrolling insights in the way. So please make sure that there is a configuration ability. But I think it's a great opportunity, and then individuals can adjust it to their requirements. And there might be the ones who like to get triggered, and then there might be the ones who still basically prefer the kind of self-service, let's say, this exploration around what's in the data and what's not. I think we shouldn't be prescriptive in that sense.
No, I probably agree, but you actually created a new life goal for me now. Now my life goal is to get in the place where all procurement people are doom scrolling Sievo insights during the night, and it's more exciting than Instagram, and then I'm in a good place.
Okay, I'm gonna listen to you on this actually.
Cool. But I think there's even kind of new modes of interacting with data, and I think this actually makes life of analytics entrepreneurs super interesting, that we are getting these new interaction modes. And of course, the insights is one, but another one we've launched and are super excited about is these kind of chat-based interactions. I know obviously the underlying enabler is the large language models, where now we can let users just ask questions and get the answers. Any thoughts here, and specifically what sort of use cases you feel this works for, and where you still want to do more traditional dashboards or visualizations?
Well, I wouldn't actually differentiate it by the use case. I would rather want this to be whatever, realistic, applicable, actionable in a sense. And here I think there comes the challenge, right? Because it doesn't really matter what interface you're using, as long as the underlying basis gives the right, let's say, insights, so to say. So I think we should also discuss around, is this now just a possibility to, I would call it like boiling the ocean, because you have a large data set and you can create millions of insights out of the data. It's the question of the relevance. And I think here I would ask you, how are you actually addressing that what you have in the solution and what you're suggesting to clients is actually relevant?
Yeah, I think sort of the relevance question for me is super important and also super hard to crack, especially with the insights. It's easy to create millions of insights based on the kind of customer data. Then at the same time, the signal to noise ratio there will be very low. And I think we need to both invest on creating the insight, but also somehow figuring out how to improve the signal to noise ratio. But also I think it's partially about, let's say, the expectation management. The expectation is, like, if you go to Netflix and you get 10 proposals what to watch, you are not going to watch all of them. And perhaps out of the 20 proposals, you will watch one and you are still sort of happy. And the expectation is that 1 out of 20 is interesting enough. And when it comes to these kind of computer-created insights, I think we need to level set the same expectation, because if the expectation is everything is relevant, we are going to fail applying them. When it comes to these chat-based sort of user interfaces, my theory is that it will support the casual use cases very well. So if you have a kind of a very specific question, I'm going to meet the supplier, I want to understand what we are buying and what are the trends, you probably want to do that very casually and quickly. Then at the same time, if you are, I don't know, preparing for supplier negotiation or creating category strategy, then I would argue you probably lean more towards these overall dashboards and more traditional visualization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe there's also a difference around the strategic importance, right? Of the category, right? And I think your timeline doesn't end here. I think there's more, right, towards getting into a certain level of automation and actions out of those insights. So what's there beyond the chatbot?
Let's see, and sort of there's I think there's one step before we get to kind of the actions, and let's get there shortly. I think also from our point of view, kind of the providing these chatbots, of course, we will be providing them, let's say, in the Sievo context. But I really believe not only Sievo, but all analytical applications, we also need to go where the users already are. So whether that's the Teams whether it's people's mobile phones. We need to kind of make sure that this casual interaction has as low friction as possible. Because if there's two things I've learned to trust in this world based on my entrepreneur experience, enterprises move slowly and people are lazy. So we need to take all the friction out of these change processes to make it happen. And it's of course our role as a provider to make that happen.
So thanks for the praise, right?
No. I think the laziness applies to me as well, and Sievo is becoming an enterprise in our own right. So I think it's also self-criticism. But let's indeed go to what you alluded already, kind of the actions, sort of what I have here is a screenshot of these insights that nowadays, yes, we want to process client data and provide alert up insights, and then provide really kind of actionable unit, kind of detailed insight card with this specific supplier, you can do this, and for example, in this example, launch Negobot. But then indeed, what is the kind of, I don't know if it's end game. When you reach the end game, you have new horizons. And basically, what we want to do is to be able to trigger these actions out of the analytics. And suddenly, the role of the analytics changes from visualization or dashboards into this sort of action hub that is intended to trigger actions into operational systems. And for me, that's the kind of when I'm saying depth to dashboards, it does mean different ways to interact with the data, but it actually also means changing the role of analytics from visualization to this sort of action hub.
I mean, that's interesting, I find, because in the end, what the way this is implemented obviously still needs somebody to decide whether to take an action or not.
Yeah.
So what I'm reflecting a lot about is where will AI really help? And my theory is if you actually just automate single steps, you're just moving the bottleneck at a different stage. So what is your thinking around that? Because you might create the insight, you might still want somebody to take an action. Why? Why don't we basically automate the entire shebang?
No, it is a great question, and I think in the next slides also, I think we will allude to the point that probably we need to automate the full shebang eventually. What I find in the past, I was quite often frustrated by the general, let's say, lack of courage of people in Sievo, our clients and so forth, to kind of move towards automation. And I feel that we've let's say had this illusion that human decisions are perfect and we can't automate the stuff because the automation is not perfect either. And somehow, for some reason, we are comparing the automation decision to perfection, whereas for humans, we allow, let's say, much more room for error. But then I sort of came to realize that then, okay, that is the reality anyways. And our role as a software provider is also, let's say, help our clients walk through the journey and learn to trust the system and learn to kind of automate. And for me, we will keep the human in the loop for the time being so that we can collect the feedback, sort of how often and under which conditions humans are willing to, let's say, let the system do the stuff. And I believe we are going to arrive at a point at some point where I can show in 96% of the cases, it's the right decision, and even 4% of cases, it's not harmful. And actually, the more actively you operate this human in the loop, the more value you create. So therefore, we should take human off the loop for this kind of decisions. And then again, I don't think it's going to be for all kind of decisions. It's kind of long tail, simple, repetitive where we'll start, and then the sphere of automation will gradually, let's say, increase over time.
And what is the feedback you're getting from clients on this?
I think it's sort of getting the insights and getting the software to kind of process the data through, that's sort of super positive, and that surfaces a lot of value immediately. Translating that to concrete actions, I think there we still have, let's say, steps to make. And I think there's multiple components. There's a component of often the structured data is not enough to make the right decision. There's the change resistance, do I want system to take over sort of thinking. And I think there's also work on our side to, let's say, optimize system further that we get, let's say, higher signal to noise ratio. So we get great results on certain use cases, but we also see there's a lot to improve in the, let's say, bigger use case scenarios as well.
Yeah,
but we have first clients who really are concretely getting concrete value out of this.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I would expect, honestly. Also, that's my personal perception around. And here I think it's again coming back to the data and all the content in these kind of let's say solutions. It's still there's so much to do to make the data better in the end, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, yeah, exactly. I think it's a great segue to this as well, because I think sort of I'm excited about AI in a couple of different ways. It's this automation that we already sort of touched upon, and let's get back to that. But I think it's also around the fact that now we can process new kind of data when it comes to decision making. So actually the way I think about the data is that you have this vertical axis, structured and unstructured data, and then you have this horizontal axis, or whether it's internal, whether it's data in your systems that you own as an enterprise, or whether it's an external data. And when we started Sievo, and still kind of the core of spend analysis is structured internal data, how do you make sense out of that? Then in the past, making sense out of the external data typically required either humans Googling the internet, or then kind of buying these data sets from external data providers. But what I see happening now is that this data has become much more accessible, both the structured and unstructured, because now the large language models can organize the world on your behalf. And I would argue as of today, for most procurement organizations, it's easier to get good information about what's outside your organization versus what's inside your organization. But really the next gold mine for me when it comes to procurement analytics is being able to analyze at scale the internal unstructured data, the contract documents, the specifications, the email interactions with suppliers, and that provides a new data feed to help decision making. And I think as in the past, the automated decision making was very much limited by the fact that it can only process structured data, which is not the full picture. But now, as we can suddenly process the entire data set, we can also create better insights, but eventually also automate the decision making much more.
No, I fully agree with that one. I mean, that one challenge I see is actually, I mean, still unstructured data must be available somewhere, right? I mean, we are possibly in the procurement context. We speak about contracts, we speak about purchase orders, about invoices, and then connecting all the related docs. But the big challenge I see is also that a lot of knowledge is not documented at all. Because there are these kind of category experts who have everything in their brain. For sure, they have good files here and there. But I think the big challenge is also for the next years that organizations start documenting or institutionalizing their knowledge, so to say, in a way that the large language models can access them.
And no, absolutely agree. And I think the way I think about that is that we need to learn to leverage our what I call digital data footprint. So if there's email exchanges with the supplier, they do contain a lot of information about the sentiment and topics and status of the relationship. But we and the enterprises need to figure out how to feed that information into large language models. Or if you are having Teams meeting with supplier, is that recorded? Is that transcribed? Does that transcription end somewhere so that it can be fed in the language models? If you get the RFP answers from suppliers, are they just on your laptop, or are they in some central place where they can be sort of exploited? And I completely agree. Sort of whether you have that data footprint in control or not does set limits on how good analytics you can do on all of that data.
I mean, do you speak to companies around their perception around, I mean, do they really own what they have, right? I mean, in a lot of the large AI companies are actually sued by whoever, like New York Times sues Anthropic for basically infringing intellectual property rights. I mean, do companies have a perspective on that? And do you see companies already trying to separate, let's say, really own IP and own information from what possibly could be challenged by others?
No, I think that's a great question. I think we as a society and as profession are really kind of figuring out where the, let's say, constraints are and who owns what. And I think there's multiple questions. If you have a contract with supplier, to what extent you own that data and you can use that for training? If an employee sends an email to supplier, is it the employee's IP or is it the company's IP? And I'm sure the German company will have very different definition of that versus a US company. One observation I'm making is that there's difference in industries. Everybody thinks about this, but the conclusion is very different, like US, Germany, as I mentioned. But also, interestingly, conclusion is very different based on the industry that the company operates with, but also within the same company based on the function. I would argue the sales and marketing tend to set boundary much more loosely than procurement is setting the boundary. And I do feel that this is visible or will be visible in how well companies do sales versus how well they do procurement. If I discuss with my peers, software peers, they are already kind of having all the interactions with their clients and feeding LLMs with that interaction to understand how the supplier-customer relationship behaves. But if I ask our clients and their procurement, they are still thinking whether they can actually do that. So perhaps I would encourage procurement to, in this aspect, learn from the sales counterparts as well. I don't know, what's your thought process?
So what you're telling me is that we should become as unstructured as sales.
I think we should be more courageous in leveraging the data footprint we have to create insights.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, I kind of agree, but maybe we can really surf on the wave sales has to prepare, because I would actually agree with the assessment that they might be easier to basically take decisions, and also with the angle of revenues, maybe let's say leadership in any organization might be more open to discuss and to let go. On the other side, I think I said it in a fun way, but I think if you have a function which only has unstructured data, we might even be able to learn from them, because they need to take that leap on making sense out of unstructured data before they can do any sort of analysis. And I feel if we combine that knowledge from different functions, we could be even better.
No, I agree, and I think, and I completely agree. And then I think there's even a kind of more point. Okay, we should also make sure that we, within an enterprise, we combine the procurement data points to kind of sales data points. So if there's a cost reduction, or if there's an inflation or supply chain shock, we not only see it from procurement category savings point of view, but we actually translate that. Okay, what it means for different end businesses, different sales products, different kind of P&L lines. But hey, clock is ticking, so there's a couple more topics I'd like to debate with you, and let me go here. Sort of,
we're not debating. We're not debating really. We are agreeing into many things, and now it's the moment to debate.
That's true. So we need to start debating then. Somehow you already sort of alluded to this, but sort of the on automated decision making. Why not automate the full shebang? And somehow I think that's where a lot of the end game will be. And sort of my thought process has been very much that, okay, a lot of the discussion about automated decision making or agents taking over is around, okay, is the quality good enough, and if something bad happens. But I think that discussion somehow misses that quality is one aspect of the decision making, but in many ways the automated AI-based decision making is vastly superior. So as a human being, I can do perhaps one decision per day, and that's a big day for me when I make a big decision. Then, of course, through the nature of automation, a computer system, the agent can make 1 million decisions per day. And the flip side of that, the cost per decision will collapse. And if the cost per decision will collapse, people typically think about, okay, kind of cost reductions and less headcount and so forth, and perhaps some of that will happen. But actually, I think the big implication is different. It's going to be that we are going to be able to make not one or 100,000 decisions, but millions of decisions, and we can afford do decisions on long tail of procurement. And then, of course, there's an uptime benefit as well. We need to go to webinars and eat and sleep, but an automated system can react to supply chain shocks basically on 24/7.
Yeah, but
And
let me challenge that. I mean, is the number of decisions the right metric here?
You are correct. It is not, and I think at least in the midterm, I do think the point I'm trying to make is that we can expand the decision making to the long tail of suppliers, categories, opportunities that currently we can't process as we humans. There's no business case, but there will be new business cases. So instead of focusing, okay, how can we do the decisions that we are doing today better or at lower cost? I would say the most of the value is, okay, how can we interact with every supplier every day, or how can we source the stuff whenever there's a change in market prices. If the market price goes down, I need to resource it. So it's not the annual sourcing process, but it's like daily reactive actions. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, it makes sense. But on the other side, also what you said earlier, like that humans take decisions maybe not that easily. It's because they want to factor into their decision making a lot of different aspects. And then I mean, I also thought a bit about, okay, maybe the impact of a decision is different if I'm a human or if I'm a machine. I mean, as a human, as a category manager, if I take the wrong decision, or if as a CPO, which has a considerable impact on whatever organizational aspect, I might also risk to lose my job. I might risk to might risk my career. I think if machines take decisions on my behalf, I want to make them sure that they are taking decisions as I would take them.
Yeah, I think it's sort of, I agree and disagree. I agree on the point that at some point of organization, there needs to be accountability for the results, and that accountability holds whether it's your team members or human team members, or whether it's your agentic team members making those decisions. So for foreseeable future, yes, there needs to be accountability by a human at some point. Then at the same time, I would think that I want agents or AI automation to do stuff that they are well fit for, that I'm not well positioned to do. So a lot of low value, simple decisions I'd like to outsource. And for the time being, yes, the strategic, more multifaceted stuff I want to take myself.
But isn't that a bit too simplistic? Let me make an example. I mean, the low value transaction, there might be this one material in the bill of material, which doesn't really make a lot of value. The spend is low, but still it's needed in order to get the output from the manufacturing line. And then my bot is actually, let's say, annoying that specific supplier that he said, okay, I'm not going to deliver anymore. So this kind of low spend decision might have a big revenue impact.
No, I completely agree. And I think that this is where we need to make sure that these bots have enough context information when they are kind of doing the stuff. So yeah, if it's your most strategic supplier, you perhaps don't want to set bot negotiate the single low value supplier. But then if it's your, I don't know, office paper sort of supplier, which has no strategic significance, there you want. So I think the role of the humans will be very much also kind of designing these guardrails where I want to automate and make bots, where I don't. But even with the strategic supplier, perhaps you don't want to send the bot to negotiate, but perhaps you want to have our bot and their bot discussing on daily basis, sort of if there's a delay performance issues or changes in forecast or something like that.
No, yeah, maybe you're right. But then there's this other element which I think people might feel that gets lost. It's about the culture, right? I mean, what kind of culture is my organization representing, and how much of that culture do I want also to be present in supplier interactions and negotiations, for example? So there is this like human element in doing procurement. And the way I looked at it actually is AI should help me to spend more time with people, right? Either internally or externally. And even in those decisions which AI is taken over, I would at least to have my whatever fingerprint as an organization being reflected. So is that something you have thought about?
Yeah, I think sort of there's an element there with which I agree. I think sort of the bots will be so much better in a lot of, let's say, tasks that we shouldn't try to compete, at least for the time being. The human connection, the relationship management and so forth is something that we will excel. So yes, I would argue that out of the category managers' time, say, bigger portion should be used with, let's say, alignment with other humans. So that I agree. Where I'm not sure if I agree, or at least I don't perhaps see it. Somehow I feel even if that's true, that out of the people we have, we will be using more time to human communication. I think out of the entire interactions between us and the suppliers, 95% will be fully automated, and initially it will be human to bot, eventually it will be bot to bot. And how much of my organization, the other bot doesn't care about my organization footprint in that negotiation so much.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure whether we spoke about that before. I'm not, because if you have like equally well programmed and working bots, so what happens with what they are negotiating? Do they really find the optimum solution, or do they destroy value in the one or the other direction? So do they find an equilibrium around splitting the benefits? I haven't thought this through, but I mean, I'm still asking myself, if we have bots negotiating against each other, what is the outcome, or what makes the difference?
Yeah, a few thought process. I think I guess the negotiation theory is that the more information you share and sort of more iteration of time you have, you can improve the joint value position. So I believe if the bots have enough information and enough freedom, they will, on average, lead to better collective outcome for both parties. Then, of course, there's a question then how do that collective win is being shared by the two parties. And there, I believe, over time, it'll go down to who just has better, let's say, strategic position in terms of number of options and so forth. So, and I think that also means that sort of a lot of the procurement and sourcing is more about how do I build midterm, long-term strategic positions so that my bots can win those battles in some ways. But hey, I'm looking at the clock. We need to start wrapping down soon. So let me jump a few. Perhaps this is the last question. So now let's assume the automated decision making starts to kind of take more space and these bot-to-bot kind of interactions emerge. What will this mean to global supply chains overall? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think the competitive advantage comes also from the early moves. And therefore, I feel that, let's say, parties who have their information in some sort ready, I mean, this is what I said earlier, have a competitive edge here, because then they get faster to the point, okay, I can let go and let AI take over here and there. And that's the big advantage, right? And then the question is, what do the people still do in the organization, and how they will do that? I also really believe in the collaboration aspect of supply chains. I don't think we're going to be successful if we believe that we can outperform everybody else. So I think these classical concepts around, okay, I'm taking the bigger part of the pie and my suppliers need to swallow it, I don't think that's going to work. I feel we're getting more into dependencies of entire supply chains. And we are competing also sometimes with supply chains or with individual companies who are completely vertically integrated. And my example is really the automotive industry, where we've seen players transforming now the electric vehicle market who were vertically integrated. And why? And I think one aspect of that is that they don't have to deal across company boundaries for many aspects, right? So if I look at the battery value chain, I mean, Tesla does the cells, they do the modules, they do the vehicle integration, and they sell the car, right? They don't really give a shit, to be honest, on where the problem is. They just solve it where it's cheapest. Whereas these classical supply chains start, okay, I have this issue. I need to prove that my supplier has the problem, and then the supplier maybe takes it to the next level of the supply chain. So this is just inefficient, and it basically takes the competition basically in advantage, who is dealing in a different way. So I don't believe that we should now aim for all these kind of vertically integrated companies, but I think we should change the behaviors in the supply chain, and therefore I still believe collaboration is key in the supply chain.
No, I think that's super interesting point. And for me also, because one thing I believe it potentially can achieve with these kind of bots is much better visibility across the supply chain and different tiers. Because currently most of this issue resolution and status checking and whatever is very human. You need to have humans into interfaces, which limits our capability to kind of how often and how deep we can get the visibility. Now I think the bot communications would promise that there's, let's say, full transparency in the supply chain. But then of course comes the question, how much are different parties willing to share about the information with their clients or suppliers and whatnot. And then I would argue that if you want to be a competitive supply chain and, for example, compete against a vertically integrated sort of company, you need to let go some of those boundaries to be able to maintain and solve effectively the situation. But how to make that happen? Because the reality is, anyways, that these companies also have their own, let's say, direct interest that may be in conflict with the other parties.
Yeah, and then that's why I believe also some of these actions we try to automate should also aim at coming closer together with your supply chain, and really try to exploit and exploit in a positive sense the value which contributes to both sides, right? Instead of aiming at I want to outperform my business partner.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm looking at the clock, so I think we wrap it up here. So thanks for the audience very much. Thanks for Alex as well. If you want to continue this dialogue about supply chains and death of dashboards and automation, here's our LinkedIn QR code. Probably you can just kind of scan your screen and connect. We'd love to do so. That's all for now. And as far, if I understand correctly, now that we close up this webinar, there's probably some other you can download these slides and perhaps do something else as well. But for now, I thank you, Alex. I thank you, the audience, for being with us today.
Do we have questions, by the way, or are there no questions?
That's actually good. There probably can be questions. Thanks, Alex. I probably should have done that. Again, I forget. There's chat functionality, so you can have questions. Let's see if there's
I think there is something, right?
There's a lot of stuff there. Yeah, let's take them. Thanks, Alex. At least one of us knows how this works. Yes. Can you see the questions as well, Alex?
Yeah, I read it. I mean,
is there anything you want to take? I'm just browsing through them.
So I think the first question Josh is asking, how do you determine which actions should be automated or leveraged by AI? Some actions are too high risk and some users shouldn't have automated action capabilities. I mean, I think we spoke a bit about it, that this needs to be considerate. I mean, as an organization, I would also not let go that basically the decision of what to automate and what not to automate, and what, let's say, authority I would give to AI, I would not leave that up to the individual. That's clear. I think there needs to be some proper policy, and this is also what I mentioned with culture. I think you as an organization represent a certain culture and certain values, and you want to make sure that whoever AI is or whatever AI is doing this and taking over tasks and responsibilities, that this AI is following what you have set as a framework.
No, I agree, and I think there's definitely. I just completely agree, and then on kind of more technical level also, I think what is now emerging is that you need to have these sort of guide rails for the agent. So one agent may be willing to do something, but before it actually does it, there's a different agent and sort of checks whether that behavior is within the, let's say, constraints and guardrails provided by the organization.
Right. Maybe that's a question for you here. For example, if your AI says consolidate these 3 suppliers, that requires contract negotiation, stakeholder buy-in, system updates, change management, risk assessment, and transition planning. Does your platform provide that execution roadmap? And how do you track whether insights actually translate to completed initiatives with measurable value?
No, well, I think that's a great question, and one that I'm so super happy to answer. I don't know if it's a colleague or somebody who gave me this gift, but no, I don't think it is. I don't recognize at least the name. So thanks for asking that. The way I see Sievo's role is that we want to be the kind of the brains that creates the insights and first has the human in the loop, perhaps eventually sort of not. But then the actual execution will happen in multiple different operational systems that already exist there. And we will be integrating to them either directly or through orchestration platforms or something like that. So I don't think we as Sievo can solve the entire world, but we can be the brains that then triggers the actions. And I think there's a great point about, okay, do you track whether the insights create the value? Because that's definitely one of the feedback loops that we want to create, that if we provide 1,000 insights, what are the patterns when they actually provide value? And then over time, we let's say first guide users and eventually automate those actions that actually in real life have proven to deliver the value.
Right. Johnny is asking, is there a due diligence or audit of the automated decision? That's a good one.
It is, and sort of the way I would approach is that there needs to be design on what we want to automate and what not. But I think that design should be not on individual decision, but sort of on pattern of decisions. And if you realize that for this, under these parameters, if I execute 1,000 actions, I will on average get 90% positive outcomes, 9% neutral outcomes, and 1% sort of harmful outcomes. Probably that's what I want to do. And it's the same with the humans. If I let category manager do 1,000 different negotiations with suppliers, I will get the distribution of outcomes.
Yeah, that's very true. There has been a bit of an ongoing or follow-up discussion in the chat. Maybe interesting also to look at that. And then Josh is asking, we are not at the maturity level where this would apply to most domains today. Poor decision quality bends future outputs and throws off truth and efficiency curves going forward. That's a pretty complex question or more statement, right?
No, it is, but it's very astute observation. Sort of the feedback we now collect sort of is that representative of what's possible and valuable in the future. So I think that's very true.
Yeah, Sigrid also made a pretty valuable statement. I would say we should not structure AI as deal makers, but pair it to human intelligence for operational efficiency and lasting value creation. Yeah, I think that's very, very true, because I feel also that humans might be much more, let's say, open to adoption of the tools once they feel that they get complemented rather than replaced. But I think it's again about embracing the opportunity. So I don't think it's a threat to most procurement professionals. I think it's more of an opportunity, right? And again, to spend more time with what really is fun about procurement. It's being with your suppliers, understanding their priorities, their constraints, and spending more time with your own team, but also with your suppliers, which is great. I'm really embracing it.
No, I completely agree. And with that, I think we end on that positive note. So indeed, AI is more a collaborator and companion than a threat to procurement professionals. Fully agree with that. And with that, now I thank you, Alex, and the audience. So thanks for being with us today.
Thank you very much.